I'm Raghav Sriram.
And I'm Ronnie Massengale.
And this is Crash Course U.S. History. Ronald Reagan.
Wait, I'm Ronald.
I know, this is Ronald Reagan, Ronald. Anyways, Ronald Reagan was the 40th President of the United States, born in 1911 and quite arguably the greatest president of all time.
He grew up in a rather poor family in northern Illinois, and he graduated from Eureka College and started out as a radio sports announcer.
That probably helped him out with public speaking.
Well, probably, but he also acted in his 20s.
He was actually able to act in 53 movies, some of the more popular ones being Bedtime for Bonzo, New Rockney, All-American, and King's Row. Reagan also served in the military in 1937, as any good president during that time period did. He was enlisted in the Army Enlisted Reserve, and was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Officer Reserve Corps of the Cavalry.
First assignment was in San Francisco. Reagan was a liaison officer of the Port and Transportation Office. He was usually assigned to a lot of positions within the Air Force, including the 1st Motion Picture Unit in the AAF Public Relations.
Now here's where it gets good. Reagan was a Democrat for around 50 years, until he switched to being a Republican. Many believe that it was his wife, Nancy Reagan, who made him Republican.
Reagan, who became the governor of California in 1966, during his 2 terms as governor, he was able to raise taxes, immensely raise the state budget, and order National Guard troops during a time of protest.
All the while, he was attempting to become president. Unfortunately, he lost twice. In 1968, challenged by Johnson, and in 1976, he ran unsuccessfully, challenged by Ford. He lost to Ford in the primaries, but his fame increased.
Reagan was successful in 1980, beating out Jimmy Carter. He swore the oath in January of 1981.
It's time for the mystery document? Okay. Behind me stands a wall that encircles the free sectors of the city, part of a vast system of barriers that divides the entire continent of Europe. Standing before the Brandenburg Gate, every man is a German, separated from his fellow men. Every man is a Berliner, forced to look upon a scar. As long as this gate is closed, as long as this scar of a wall is permitted to stand, it is not the German question alone that remains open, but the question of freedom for all mankind. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union in Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open the gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Is it Reagan? Ronald Reagan?
Okay.
Okay, and
Here.
since he said tear down this wall, he's obviously referring to the Berlin Wall in 1987. Let's get it!
Reagan is widely known for his economic policies.
As some of you may not know, Reagan said we presented a complete reduction in tax rates. Again, our purpose was to provide incentive for the individual incentives for businesses to encourage production and hiring of the unemployed, and to free up money for investment. Reagan made an effort to cut taxes. With him being a Republican, that was one of his main platforms. Back in the day, money went around much differently. Inflation was around at 10%, and interest rates were in the double digits. The federal debt was about half the amount it is today. Reagan was the one to change all that. His tax cut made the top rate fall from 70 to 50 to 28%. This all didn't come without a price. The Treasury said that the revenue rate fell to 9% in the first few years of the tax cut.
Also, unemployment decreased. Many believe that individuals were not motivated to work, since they could keep the majority of their salary.
During the Reagan administration, they were involved in many worldwide events. Let's go to the thought bubble. His foreign policy was very effective because he single-handedly outdid the Soviet Union by increasing military spending and making huge tax cuts. In order to do this, he had to have an expanding economy, which he did, while the Soviet Union had a struggling economy due to the fact that they were communists and the economy wasn't moving well for them. He made great leaps in order to get the Berlin Wall torn down, especially in his famous speech in 1987, which is what we did in the mystery document. With this famous quote, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. This is what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s with foreign policy.
So wrapping everything up, Reagan was a great president. He eventually led the Cold War to an end because of his high military spending policies and tax cuts, which led to a good economy. Reagan was a valid candidate for the presidency even in his early years. He acted in his 20s, served in the military, was the governor of California for 2 terms, and many more achievements. That's going to wrap it up for the day.
Thanks to Alex McCory for the animating.
Thanks to Scott Elkins for script writing and editing. And thanks to Ronnie Massengale and Raghav Sriram for the amazing acting.